one of the most common questions I think a lot of people get when they make content for these sort of games is what's the best build for so-and-so, or what's the best gun, or what's the best, in my case, shotgun for ranked, or what's the best shotgun overall. And so what I want to do with today's video is talk about a shotgun I think stands a little bit above the rest, at least compared to the other ones of its style. And that is going to be the Bryson 890, which in my opinion is probably the next best shotgun for things like quads and trios and pretty much any game mode you can think of besides the broadside. The 890 is something you should not be sleeping on for a few different reasons. So I'm going to go over a class that I recommend as just sort of an overall quote-unquote meta build for shotguns in particular that I think has great range, great damage potential up close, and great movement, and overall just great mobility. It's an awesome shotgun, and while the Bryson 800 is close to it, and some might say it's better in some ways, which it is, I think that this one is great for a lot of different reasons. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So here is the gold standard build that I recommend. The really nice thing about this build is it has a great two-shot potential, and it's got great mobility overall. But the big thing is, since we have a magazine now, you can reload very quick, and you have 8 shells by default, which is just so great to have in those game modes like trios and quads. The Bryson 800 can only get up to 6, which is okay, but this, to have a magazine and 8 rounds, really does put it a little bit above the Bryson 800 in some regards, in my opinion, even though you lose some range. Now, a big thing to note with this build, if you're having a hard time getting consistent 2-shots, one thing to try that I know helped me was to swap out the stock. So instead of using the sawed-off mod stock, use something like the FSS Guardian stock, because this one doesn't hurt your recoil nearly as much as the other two, like the stockless pistol grip and the sawed-off. And even though you're not getting a crazy movement speed buff or aim down sight speed buff, you're getting a little bit of aim down sight speed, but it's really not that much. It just doesn't hurt your recoil as much. So I noticed that it's a lot easier to stay on target because the gun's not flying upwards as much. It's a little trick to kind of keep in mind just to try out if you're having a little bit of a hard time. It may not work for everybody, but I noticed for me, I was getting a little bit better with the gun just because it wasn't flying all over the place nearly as much. So now let's talk about the ranges real quick and some of the actual detailed stats. So for the Bryson 890, the 2-shot potential with this build is going to be out to about 14.7 meters, which is a little bit shorter than compared to the Lockwood 300 builds or the Bryson 800, but the thing about it is that this is still a great 2-shot, and it's better than any shotgun we had in Warzone 1, so just keep that in mind for a little bit of reference in the back of your head. Now, compared to the Bryson 800 build of the same style, that's going to 2-shot out to about 16.9 meters. And see, the thing about these is that they can be a little inconsistent, and that little difference in the meters doesn't really make a whole lot of difference in my opinion. Yes, it is great in the Bryson 800 and arguably better in some ways because of the aim down sight spread, but to be honest, I would rather take the Bryson 890 for those 2 extra rounds in the magazine, having a magazine in general, and also having just better mobility in general with a better aim down sight speed, great sprint to fire speed, great aim down sights forward, strafe, tactical sprint forward, all those kind of speeds. They're really good on this gun, and they're better than the Bryson 800, which again, it's important for a shotgun, and I think it puts this gun just slightly above the Bryson 800 in some ways. But again, one of the greatest things about this build is the fact that you have 8 shells by default, and you already have great mobility compared to the other shotguns, so I think it's kind of a no-brainer in some ways. But I do want to mention, again, it's not this like solid, it's just better overall in all circumstances compared to the Bryson 800. I think that the 800 is still really good, and again, it has better range, and it's a little bit of a tighter pellet spread when you aim down sight, so you can definitely make the argument that that one's better. But I think in general, because again, mobility and that magazine size, this thing is great, especially for trios and quads. And I've had a lot of an easier time using this shotgun, particularly because of the magazine and the extra rounds. And it's just way easier to manage engagements when you're not kind of having to always press X to reload between your shots and stuff. It does work nicely on the Bryson 800 shell by shell, but I think this is the better way to go overall because the reload speed really isn't that bad. And especially if you have fast hands, it's just super quick. So really, that's just about going to do it for this particular build and video. It wasn't as long as the other ones usually, but I didn't really have too much to go over other than to tell you guys this build is in general really one of the best shotgun builds that we have access to right now. There's also a few other builds I will be going over that are super awesome, and some are a little bit more niche, but oh man, they are so deadly and so fun to use. But this one, like I said, this should be a gold standard, and really the Bryson 800 build that I showed too, that's another gold standard. But honestly, this one is going to work way better in trios and quads in my opinion, of course. So give it a shot and let me know what you think. And also let me know down below in the comments, what do you think about this shotgun after the buff? Do you think it's actually really good? Do you think this is slightly below the Bryson 800 or maybe slightly above it like I do? Do you think that the broadside is still the #1 shotgun? And with all that being said, guys, I will see you in the next video.
Oh my god, one on his ass.
Enemy soldier incoming.